Better late than never. Okay, OnePlus has had an interesting year, managing a brand pivot and going a bit more mainstream, but I think the label has done a solid job of holding on to their core mission, snappy phones that compete on price very well against their competitors. I disagree with the idea that OnePlus has lost their way as much as they now face more direct competition from larger manufacturers. I shot a video on the Nord N10 a little while back for the international release, and now it's officially getting sent here to the United States. I think that video still holds up for some of my concerns, my pros, my cons, build quality, haptics, all that good stuff. It's all gonna be the same here. But this is a good chance to do a follow-up, talk about real-world performance and how this compares against that aforementioned competition. I really like what's on offer here. And this is a critical tier for the United States. You get a lot of phone for not a lot of cash. As I've been looking at real-world performance, we just have to be a little bit more selective. The chipset in this phone is one of Qualcomm's lower mid-range solutions. In the past, I think that would have been cause for concern, but over the last year, the differences between a 600 and 700 series chipset are a lot more nuanced. In terms of CPU performance, the two are nearly identical, and that means the Nord N10 is able to hang with phones all the way up to Pixel 5s and the LG Wing. Where the Snapdragon 690 struggles is with graphics performance. Qualcomm uses a weaker GPU in this tier, but that makes the Nord kinda easy to categorize. This phone is fantastic at daily driver tasks, up to some decent heavy lifting in CPU situations. Seriously, handling documents, communication, social media, even a crazy test like editing and mixing on an hour-long podcast, the N10 is neck and neck with significantly more expensive phones. The N10 would not be my top pick for folks who want to play games. Sure, Candy Crush titles, that's gonna be fine. But climbing up to more graphics intense titles, this phone starts to struggle. Against a phone like the TCL 10 5G, we see nearly double the graphics performance in games like Bright Ridge or Undead Horde. I have a written by the benchmarks comparison between the N10 and the TCL on SomeGadgetGuy.com. Comparing those two phones for video rendering, photo processing, podcast editing, file compression, etc., etc., one Geekbench score does not complete the performance conversation. Over the last year, as I've handled OnePlus devices, the more I appreciate the company's focus on speed. They make products that feel fast. These products don't always truly outperform the competition, but they always feel snappy. I was just mentioning the TCL 10 5G. That phone is more powerful for graphics, but the faster refresh rate screen on the N10 makes the Nord feel sleeker than the more powerful phone. If you're not playing games on your phone, what's going to be more important to you? GPU power you're not using, or a more fluid UI? Only you can answer that question. Switching gears here just to talk a little bit about software, I was concerned when we saw Oxygen OS adopt a heavier skin and more customized layout, but this mid-ranger chip is driving the new interface just fine. Better, this whole conversation is balanced against a wonderfully competitive price tag. When I handled the international N10, I was guessing it would arrive here somewhere around $399. I was off by $100. In a good way. At $299, this is a monster competitor. As prices on new phones fall, we always have to balance pros and cons. Compromises need to be made, but I like what OnePlus is focusing on here. At $299, we don't get an official IP rating or wireless charging. This phone probably won't get the same longevity of software support for major updates as their more expensive OnePlus cousins. Instead, we get some compelling hardware features. OnePlus Warp charging is here. There's a decent collection of cameras on the back. The N10 has a headphone jack and a memory card slot. The 90 Hz display is pretty clean, and of course, a 5G radio. It's really easy to complain about some omissions and point to a better phone, but at $299, it's incredibly difficult to find a proper oranges to oranges comparison. If your advice is just buy a more expensive phone, sort of the tech equivalent of let them eat cake, that's exactly why average consumers stopped listening to us techies like years ago. For those consumers shopping around this tier, the ability to just tack on an extra $50 or $100 to their budget might not always be feasible. So, for comparison's sake, it's a little slice of incredible where we end up here. Back in June, $300 was the full MSRP for a phone like the Stylo 6. The N10 is a lot more powerful than the Stylo 6. We could compare against the launch price of the TCL 10L, but like I said, even a $50 price hike might be a bridge too far for some potential consumers. So let's climb higher for the competition. The Pixel 4a sells for $50 more. And this is a fun fight. The Pixel is a hair more powerful in all of my tests, especially in 4K video rendering. I'm sure Google will support the 4a with updates longer than OnePlus will with the Nord. Pretty much the same RAM and storage, but the Nord can add a memory card. The Pixel has an OLED with better contrast and richer color. The Nord has a larger, faster refresh LCD for smoother UI transitions and scrolling. The Pixel has a single camera with a better camera app for HDR processing. The Nord has a multi-camera setup with a larger, higher resolution main camera. Both have headphone jacks and comparable stereo speakers, but the Nord has a 30% larger battery and it supports 30-watt fast charging. And of course, the Nord, which is $50 cheaper, is a 5G capable phone. Tell me that's not a fun fight. Ditto a showdown with the iPhone SE, where we could not find more polar opposite devices if we tried. For $100 more, the iPhone wins for water resistance, wireless charging, a more powerful processor, and will probably win for long-term software support. For $100 less, the N10 wins for battery and charging speed, having a larger and nicer screen, multiple cameras, double the storage, headphone jack and memory card support, and of course, 5G on better radios and antennas. So yes, it's really easy to hyperfixate on one or two bullet points on a spec sheet and declare a winner because that's the one spec that matters most to you. But looking at phones holistically, this is the direction we should be traveling. 5G adoption does not improve on the backs of $2,000 statement phones. 5G becomes a real technology when we can just take it for granted that all new phones will have it, even on budget-friendly options. 5G on a TCL, $100 more. 5G on a Pixel, $200 more. 5G on an iPhone, $400 more. If we're real about being tech enthusiasts, we should care about better competition for people shopping at all tiers of the smartphone spectrum. The N10 hits hard, and in a market OnePlus is helping to define for the United States. Truly affordable 5G. So I dig it. This is where average consumers are shopping. Entry level to mid-range. The Nord N10 easily earns a spot on my list of recommended budget options. Pixels, TCLs, iPhone SE, and now OnePlus. These are devices which focus on covering that core user experience, are powerful enough to handle some demanding computing tasks, and are genuinely nice overall daily drivers. I genuinely feel people will enjoy using them first and foremost, and then they'll be tickled by the low price tags. That's just an additional perk. The lower price no longer represents the main scary compromise. If you're not trying to do laptop grade computing on your phone, why spend more? I will, of course, leave some links down below for more info on the OnePlus Nord N10, where you can shop this puppy online. As always, thanks so much for watching, for sharing these videos, subscribing to the channel. Supporting your favorite content creators has never been more critical than it is today. So I greatly appreciate those of you who are checking out the description down below my videos, maybe looking at my merch. That kind of stuff really does help keep production rolling on this channel. You can hit up SomeGadgetGuy.com for a full list of all of my affiliates and partnerships, or you might consider joining the list of names scrolling by on your screen from my Patreon, patreon.com/SomeGadgetGuy. This list represents a collection of the coolest people on the internet, so I hope you'll check them out. Now, you know where you can find me around the rest of the internet at SomeGadgetGuy on the Twitters and the Twitch, and the Facebooks and the Instagrams. And I will catch you all on the next review.